I'm Taylor.
And I'm Tyler.
This is Book of Mormon Central's Come Follow Me Insights. Today, the books of Hosea and Joel.
These are significant books as we get to this stage in our study of the Old Testament, in that you've seen a lot of God's justice. You've seen a lot of his judgment, a lot of the difficulties associated with these people turning their back on him and him having to execute those negative consequences that he had promised them multiple times through prophets. And so now we come to the book of Hosea, where I'll never forget years ago in a seminary and institute teacher training meeting, listening to, at the time, Elder Henry B. Eyring as he talked about his experience teaching early morning seminary. And he was teaching the Old Testament year and feeling some of those difficulties with, do these kids, are they seeing a really angry and spiteful or vengeful God? And then he came to Hosea and saw this one-sided love story that just changed everything for him and his students. And that was a moment in my life where I thought to myself, I need to get to know this book better. And since then, it has become my favorite of the often overlooked books in the Bible.
This book also has been transformative in my life. When I came home from my mission, I was working that summer, and on my lunch breaks, I wanted something to do. So I was looking for books to read. My mom had been an early morning seminary teacher in Minnesota for years. I mean, there's got to be a special place in heaven for anybody who can get up at 5 a.m. when it's 20 below zero every day for 14 years. But she'd received a gift of a book written by a number of BYU professors some years ago, and the book was called Isaiah and the Prophets. So as a recently returned missionary, I was really interested to dig deeper into the scriptures. And as I started reading this book on my lunch break, I was particularly intrigued about the book of Hosea, and I was so fascinated to understand, as Tyler's talking about, this love story of the mercy God had for his people. And I was so fascinated by how the Hebrew worked and how understanding the culture made the book make more sense. I decided right then and there, I want to go learn Hebrew. And I thought, just having come home from Chile, where you speak Spanish, I thought, well, where am I going to learn Hebrew? I got to go to Israel. And a year later, I went to the BYU Jerusalem Center, which transformed my thinking about, I want to spend my life studying the scriptures personally and professionally. And here I am almost 30 years later, finally get to teach this. And it really is one of the best books. And we'd invite you, as you dig into this book, to really look for, there's a number of important things, but specifically, how is God calling his people back into relationship with him as the great husband? And how is he inviting us to let go of anything that was distracting us? Anything we've done wrong, we're welcome back in. And that's this amazing love story of invitation into his kingdom.
I love it. So, as we begin, chapter 1 is filled with names. And Taylor has often said, the name is the lesson. So as we begin, it's important to recognize the fact that his very name, this prophet, Hosea, the name means salvation. In fact, it's the first name given to the prophet Joshua, who replaces Moses way earlier in our New Old Testament study. The first time you're introduced to him in the book of Numbers, he's called Oshea, or that's the Hebrew way of saying his name here. And later on, it becomes Yehoshua, or Joshua in English. So in that case, we just added Jehovah to the name. So Jehovah is salvation, which happens to become Jesus's name in Aramaic, Yeshua. It's Joshua. Jehovah is salvation. So at the outset of this book, recognize the fact that this is a book rooted in the same root word for the name of Jesus later on when he's born. Jehovah is salvation. So it's a book of salvation. This is a book about Jesus in a beautiful metaphor that connects directly with us. So we're going to be introduced to a whole bunch of other players in this saga that unfolds. And many people have asked this question: is this an actual story? Did this really happen to a real guy named Hosea? Or is it just an allegory, just a metaphor? And I don't know that I've ever seen anything authoritatively finishing that debate on either side. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter so much whether it was an actual guy who actually experienced this or whether it's this allegory, kind of a parable story. Let's not miss the point. This is about the love of God for us, his people, and his perfection and our imperfection. That's the message of this book, this covenantal connection that we, never God, we keep breaking all the time, and he keeps reestablishing with us as we move forward into this story.